like hired guns, the new super breed of management consultants travel the world tackling any problem. These 26 recruits to top strategy consultancy McKinsey and Co have come from 15 different countries to Oxfordshire. For 2 weeks, this elite group will take part in the introductory training programme that teaches them the McKinsey way. As we reach the millennium, the McKinsey class of 98 and their like have increasing but hidden influence on business and government worldwide.
Okay, here we go. That's it.
We need to do more than just make money. We need to make an impact on the world. We should be providing leadership, working with governments, the United Nations, the World Health Organization. We need to make a real difference. We need to do more than just get bigger. We're preeminent because we are the best, not because we're the biggest. But in 20 years' time, will we still be regarded as an elite when we employ more top management talent than all of the Fortune 500 combined?
McKinsey's 4,500 consultants are trained so that whatever their nationality or background, they act as one firm. For the first time, this program will reveal the codes, values and attitudes behind this highly secretive firm. From their first year with McKinsey, young consultants work on a spread of global businesses.
I've worked in the cruise industry, life insurance, retail, oil and gas, and I am currently working in consumer packaged goods.
I've worked in a fairly diverse set of industries. Started out working in the chemical sector, followed that by doing a couple of studies in the financial services area, and principally now I'm spending most of my time focusing on telecommunications.
I started off with healthcare, I then moved into insurance, and I then moved into consumer goods, followed by banking.
McKinsey's tough policy of up or out means that only 1 in 5 of these recruits will become partners in the next 5 years. But those who leave will join McKinsey's huge network of alumni, one of the company's strongest assets.
The people who've left McKinsey and succeeded to high position subsequently are obviously very good radiating references for us. And so we encourage them to keep in touch with the firm. We meet with them. I mean, I had dinner 3 weeks ago in New York with the head of CBS and the head of PepsiCo's restaurant chains, both of whom are former McKinsey directors.
Other McKinsey alumni include the chairman or chief executives of a growing number of the world's major multinationals. In Britain, McKinsey alumni include politicians like Conservative leader William Hague, Archie Norman of Asda, former Tory party chief executive, Howard Davis, regulator of the City of London and former CBI chairman. The present chairman is also ex-McKinsey.
I am in fact the third ex-McKinsey person in a row, following John Banham and Howard Davis. I can promise you I have not so far nominated somebody presently in McKinsey as my successor.
What is one of the things that we should never do in our offices in McKinsey? Sit in your office with a black cloud hanging over your head. Go and ask. Seek help.
The task of imbuing the firm's style and values lies with former Brigadier Harry Langstaff. Now 79, he's been running McKinsey's introductory training program since 1971. 350 courses in all.
Don't feel that because you're 29, not 49 or 59, you're not a great contributor to clients. You are. Great analytic skills, great basic intelligence, sorry about that, but you do, the ability to look at a problem with different eyes, and that can be enormously valuable to a client. One of the reasons we don't take people in at 40, 45, because there's a danger that they will use their previous experience as a problem-solving tool. They will simply say, it worked in the company I was in, it'll work here. And that's not what we are all about. You have to use your brains, clear, clean, and open.
There are various virtues with young people. They work very hard. And yes, they have clean minds, but they also have very impressionable minds. They can receive the McKinsey blueprint much more readily than older people.
There is a danger, as in any organisation, that people recruit in their own mould, and there is a McKinsey type of person.
Doubt.
This is the cream of consultancy recruits, survivors of no fewer than 7 grueling McKinsey interviews, testing their fitness to succeed in this new competitive priesthood.
The recruiting process was aggressive. It's tough. You go through a lot of grueling interviews, and there are things that you have to practice for. So I rehearsed and worked with friends and really tried to nail the technique, because that's what it is sometimes, is a technique.
Simon was a Cambridge-educated investment banker.
It was tough. McKinsey in particular uses something called the case study method as part of its interviewing process. And typically what might happen is over an hour or so, you may have a conversation with someone in the firm who presents to you a business problem that they may have encountered elsewhere in their career. And you have to think with that person as to what the causes for that might be and what the potential solutions might be. I think I personally must have interviewed with about 12 or so people.
Kari came from Texas and worked in advertising.
One of the interview questions I was asked in my final rounds was how many pigs are in China, which sounds like a very silly question, but it's a really good question to test how you think, because it's not only, the answer doesn't matter, it's how, can you structure a problem? Can you take a very nebulous situation and put structure around it in a way that makes sense, and then logically deduce things in order to get to an answer that's meaningful.
Steve had begun a business career but wanted more of a challenge.
The reason I chose McKinsey was they have access to some of the best clients in the world. They have a reputation for tackling some of the toughest problems, and it was that aspect of challenge that really appealed to me.
The fact that in graduates' minds, management consultancy is the glamorous thing to do, that isn't a good thing. Management consultancy in and of itself only exists because managers are there to be helped. And it would strike me that it would be better to have the smartest people as the managers rather than as the consultants.
Half come from business school, others from investment banking, the law and engineering. There's even a professor of microbiology and an anthropologist. For the next 2 weeks, they will be immersed in a simulation exercise based on a real McKinsey case. To McKinsey's management, this is much more than role-playing. It is used to expose the strengths and weaknesses in the way each of these hopefuls think and work.
You're going to lead client teams this afternoon. You're going to have a start of a study with the McKinsey client people meeting for the first time to get the process underway. So you've got to think about analytics and a lot about communication.
The client is the leading Swedish broadsheet newspaper, Dagens Nyheter, DN. Sweden always seemed a model of prosperous stability until the cold winds of world recession hit in the early 90s. The slump hit DN so badly, they called in McKinsey to save the paper.
The entire existence of the paper was jeopardized. It was an old structure, management structure with the paper. They probably couldn't have handled it. It was necessary to make a lot of things happening during a short period of time.
DN replaced its old plant with costly high-tech presses. When recession killed the advertising market, it plunged the company into £40 million of debt. Thomas Axion was part of the McKinsey team at DN. Then, like many consultants, he moved across to work for his client and became DN's managing director.
It was not an easy task to bring consultants in to DN because the newspaper does not want anyone to tell them what to do. They believe they know everything best themselves. But we had to do something. So the DN management at that time thought it's obvious we need help. So let's try.
It was a classic business problem. DN relied largely on job adverts to fund its high-cost operation. It had no marketing strategy to earn money in other ways, and no one had tackled the page setting or pre-press area, where new technology meant that only half the staff were now needed.
We're going to redesign the pre-press area. It's going to be tough to do it. We're going to form a client team You're going to have to lead the team, think about how you're going to get that process underway, and we're going to get down to more detailed solutions, implementable solutions. And if we use our knowledge with the client's knowledge of their own company, we should move ahead quite rapidly. We're going to have the kick-off meeting this afternoon. Half of you are going to suddenly become client people. You won't know it until quite close to the time. Each of you in turn is going to be a client person, and you're going to have a McKinsey person working with your associate and an observer, a coaching exercise. And last but not least, downsizing DN. In pre-press, you have the most militant and powerful union in Sweden, the Graphics Union. And that's true all over the world. They have closed newspapers. They're extremely powerful. So that's what we're going to be struggling with over the next 2 or 3 days. And we'll get you moving on the McKinsey client team meeting. Any questions at all?
Oh, hey, room is ready. We gotta go, guys. We are. Thunderbirds a go. Come on.
In most of the first week of the course, recruits learn McKinsey's exhaustive way of analysing and solving problems by taking them apart. Their trademark is a profusion of charts and diagrams. It has been much like a normal week. Long hours spent crunching the numbers of the DN case, preparing to present their first hypotheses about DN's future to the client team.
All right, 18 pages. That's pretty good for a 45-minute meeting. That's on target. And all of our pages are process-based. Okay. Communications planning. Excellent. This is open. So the point here is plan it very carefully and then do it openly, honestly, frequently, rapidly. And
My average week would be between 55 and 65 hours. My worst week at McKinsey, I've never made it to 100 hours, but I've come pretty close.
I don't think joining McKinsey is something that one should do lightly, in that McKinsey does expect you to devote your life to them. And many people, I think, would find that to be too heavy a price to pay to enjoy the experience.
See, now this is a sign of truly poor planning. Our packs are nearly complete, and we have 6 whole minutes.
We clearly haven't done enough analysis.
Precisely. I think we need more charts.
Yeah, seriously, at this stage in the game, most people either have not slept for a week and it's on complete autopilot.
For McKinsey's smart young associates, analysing data comes easily. The other half of the training is much harder, to develop empathy for their clients' feelings. That's the crucial challenge of the role-playing. Having prepared their analysis of what's gone wrong, they're about to learn whether their team will present the bad news or receive it.
It's my favorite part. I like it better when I get money for it. All the bribes.
They take it seriously, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They really do. It's fun.
The recruits work as hard as they would on a real case, knowing their future at McKinsey's could be affected by how well they do here.
Tell me good news. Oh, God. How much work have you guys done? Are you prepared?
We are so prepared, it's not even funny.
Are you really?
Not quite, but...
Well, no, but we thought
But
it
you guys
sounded
would have a good
realistic.
meeting if you were associates?
We hope so.
Yeah? Well, you're clients, so it doesn't really matter.
We didn't want to answer. I was dying to say.
Now,
yes,
who criticized my job?
Wait, I want to be the steward. I'm a perfect steward.
He is the shop steward.
I want to be the bad. I want the real bad guy.
I think the part that I learned the most about was actually role-playing the client and looking back at us and how sometimes we can be really offensive. That was quite insightful, to just always force yourself to take their view of the world.
Hello, this is Vincent. Nice to meet you.
The pre-press area manually sets the pages before they go to press. It's a primary target for job cuts. To introduce the new technology, the McKinsey team must enlist the help of pre-press executives and the shop steward. The teams who play the clients have profiles of each character and their worries.
I am Gutenberg.
They have a ball, the client people. They absolutely love it. Yeah. Don't they?
It's fun. It's fun. It's fun to be on the other side. Yeah. I mean, it really gives them a good understanding.
When we brief them, you'll hear them what we tell them to do, to try and make it more difficult for the McKinsey people.
What experience have you had with editing with these new technologies?
Actually, I have, except for the last 2 months, where I spent a tremendous amount of time, at this organization and getting to know a lot of great people and learning about the business. I actually have no previous experience with the insurance industry, with the newspaper industry, other than reading a lot of newspapers. But this is often the way McKinsey works at top.
For Joshua, a lawyer from Minnesota, Steve and the others, the DN case offers a real challenge in a beguilingly safe environment. Watched by a McKinsey tutor, they behave, for better or worse, as they would with a real client.
Who specialize on nothing more than the newspaper industry, both globally and regionally. And we will be accessing those people. In fact, in the first 2 months, we've accessed them many times.
If you have some specialists in newspapers, are any of them here now? I mean, why don't you have some of them come work here full-time?
Simply because we leverage them quite a bit to help, for example, other companies in other countries deal with problems. So there'll be teams, and they'll come and visit all the teams and come on an as-needed basis.
So will they share the information they learn about our company with our competitors?
Client confidentiality is one of the underlying principles of McKinsey as an organization. Mm-hmm. We have, over the years, established a strong reputation for working with direct competitors in many industries. The great thing about consulting is that it enables you to tackle the real tough issues that businesses face at a very young age. It's quite frightening at first to go into an area where you have little experience. But one of the strengths of McKinsey is that it has enormous expertise from individuals, which you can tap into even at the most junior level of the organization. So they act as a tremendous source of help and information in terms of getting you up to speed with the issues facing each of the industries that you operate in.
One of the criticisms made of consultants, of course, is that they bring in heavyweight partners to actually sort of set up the arrangement and make the contract, so to speak. And then, having got it, they then bring in a swarm of young, presumably inexperienced and maybe not all that effective youngsters who are charged in at very high fees. There is some truth in that, but I like to think that in McKinsey and Company, even the youngest consultant is capable of pulling his or her weight because of the way we select them and train them and motivate them and get rid of them if they don't.
McKinsey expects the recruits to be as fiercely skeptical as real clients. Susan, a Russian scholar from Texas, plays the head of topographers.
It's going to be quite difficult to do this.
Perhaps this is an intrusive question, but may I just ask, how old are you?
I'm 28 years old.
You're 28 years old. I'm 50. I've been working at this newspaper for 33 years. I'm the head of typographers. I've hired most of the people who work here. And I just have to let you know, there's a lot of people who wonder when we see a bunch of 20-something people walking around whether you really understand the implications of what you're doing.
I think there is a risk that when you're in an environment like McKinsey, where you keep hearing all the time how good you are, and it's sort of part of the culture, you may not become arrogant, but you will be perceived as being arrogant. And that risk is clear when you enter an environment like a newspaper, which is something totally different.
If you've been in a company or an industry your entire professional life, and someone is telling you that you're in trouble, you need help, and we brought in 20-year-old messiahs from an American firm, of course that creates a lot of questions and resistance.
So what happens is you get these super bright people all together who feed off each other and end up in a highly pressured, quite smug atmosphere. From the inside, I expect that makes it a very stimulating place to work. But from the outside, it's smug and often off-putting.
I think there is a perception among people that McKinsey is very elitist. I think that there is a perception within McKinsey that we are a special group of people. But I don't think it's just because, the intellectual piece of it. I think it's also because we all value very similar things.
I think the minute you start thinking of yourself as the chosen race, you're in trouble. But, I was compelled to come here because the bright people that I met, and hopefully you continue to foster that. But like I said, if you think you're at the top of the heap, you won't be for much longer.
We've never been more successful than we are today. The reason? We know our strengths and our limits. Our main problem is managing our expectations. We live with the constant fear that failure is only one study away. We are insecure overachievers. But fear of failure can be a strength if it helps keep us sharp.
Squish together. On the center. Squish together.
Okay, so you get everybody ready? Lay down.
Let's do this. Let's do this.
Lay down. Does that work? Next time.
ITP, McKinsey's introductory training program, uses role-playing to expose the faults often laid at the door of consultants. McKinsey has frequently been accused of using a standard solution for all its clients' problems.
I suspect that McKinsey do indeed come to most large tasks of that sort with a few constants, a blueprint, if you like, which applies to almost every sort of industry they tackle.
They know the solution, and therefore you've just got to, at the margins, tweak it to make it applicable to this client or to that situation. We have the answer. And that is a weakness which becomes most apparent when the client has not sat down with McKinsey at the early stage and said, no, that's not actually our problem. That might have been the situation that you handled with client X. Our problem is rather different from that for the following reasons.
In the kick-off meeting between McKinsey and pre-press executives, this issue comes up again over cost cuts.
Go to the second page in your handout. There's a process we supposed to use. It's based on experience we've had in about more than 1,000 other times where we did this kind of studies. Yes,
More than 1,000 studies in the past. And it works every time?
It's been working every time.
It's been working every time?
Yes.
Okay.
On average, it's 40% that can be saved.
And you think you can save 40%?
That's on average. That's all the other times has been the target. That's what's set.
That's for quite a bit of people, isn't it?
Every manager who sees the management consultants coming into their organisation feels a lot of fear. If they are McKinsey and earning the large sums that McKinsey are earning, so much the worse, so much the prejudice.
It was obvious at that time that there were much too many employees at Dagens Nyheter, and they knew from newspaper clippings around the world that McKinsey was always brought in to cut heads. So they were afraid. They were really afraid.
Knut, fresh from Norwegian Business School, expresses the anxieties felt by the rail shop steward.
If the board is making the decision, that's the people I should talk to. I care about the jobs here.
By actually being a member of this team and working with the group, you will in fact be talking to the board in terms of these are the recommendations which we feel should be implemented. So you will have that opportunity.
I've been talking to the guys around. I know what's going on. This is about cutting people.
I recognise that you have major concerns here, and we will get to them very shortly.
I know all these people who've been working here, many of them more than 20 years. And if you tell me, well, they're not as productive, what does that mean? Do you want to send this guy out on the street? You want to ruin his whole life?
I do not think that all of our solutions we come up with are going to involve layoffs, specifically. Okay, and that would be, and we would almost shoot ourselves in the foot this early in the game to think that that is the only way we can make the savings.
You fire a specific person. Most of them are in their 50s. A lot of them won't be able to find another job. They've invested their entire life in this newspaper. What do you care? You've done this 1,000 times before.
At the time, McKinsey was going to help DN to survive. And if that meant helping the organization identify where they can be fewer, you do that. And you don't think that much about the individuals that may be, because you're not part of that decision-making process. Someone else. At least I didn't, which sounds horrible, but that's the fact. Once I became part of DN and have to sit and tell individuals that they have to leave, it's much more concrete, at least on me.
When the role-playing exercise ends, recruits get critical feedback from each other and their observer.
Impatient, strong-willed, narrow-minded, old-fashioned, change-averse, and difficult to deal with.
My favorite quote from Susan. Do you want to ruin this man's life?
You had a great start in the beginning. We went around the table, shook hands. I think that's very good. You emphasize that it's not only going to be them, but it's going to be throughout the organization. Every department is going to be affected. So it's not just them.
During the fortnight, no fewer than 35 senior McKinsey consultants turn up to tutor and role-play with the recruits. The idea is to broaden their access to the firm's experience.
The only negative was the 1,000 times 40%. I don't know if that's the... That's a killer. You can't get away from that.
100% success ratio. Gunning for a promotion.
Students are told that McKinsey values their willingness to be ruthlessly honest with each other.
I realized how easy it is to start talking in very generic McKinsey terms of just like, well, we always do X, and then we do Y, and then we do Z, and it just comes across as very cold and clinical, and just like you parachute into a different building every Monday morning, and as if you didn't care what client you were in the world that you were at.
We tend to be very conceptual and theoretical when we think about things, but for someone who's not used to thinking like that, it doesn't make sense. This is just consulting buzzwords.
The right to dissent is an obligation. We believe people must, if they genuinely believe it, say this is the wrong way to go. They've got to justify it.
Personal feedback is crucial to McKinsey and the way we operate. What that involves is taking someone aside, or even in a group setting, however the group decides this is going to be handled, and letting that person know what they're doing well and what we call their development needs are. And I think it's an important distinction that they are called development needs, not problems or issues or things you're doing wrong. Because McKinsey believes that you can be the best you can, but only through, learning from what you're doing.
You will probably find that Swedes, Norwegians, Europeans in general, they have a stereotype of Americans that you need to know about. So you sort of not fulfill it completely.
So the eloquence or the kind of over-talking can work against me.
It can.
When dealing with people that perhaps aren't used to that kind of dialect.
Yeah. That's
feedback.
Exactly right.
Fantastic feedback. Cool.
I don't know if you use that well. It probably worked well there, but I mean that's something to think about when you work with them.
It's good. I haven't worked with international people yet, so
I haven't worked with that many Americans either. But
we're learning.
When you first encounter the level of criticism and appraisal that you have at McKinsey, it does come across as slightly overpowering. But after the first shock, you realise that this is a normal part of the learning process, and people are also coached in actually how to give you feedback in a way that enables you to learn from it and not just to put up defensive walls.
Our client team was expecting to step slowly onto the train, but ended up being run over by a runaway train. Our worst fears of McKinsey were confirmed. They were going to...
There seems to be quite a gap between the McKinsey people and the client people. Let me make some suggestions based on this and what I've observed before. Get the CEO, get him there the first 4 or 5 minutes to set the scene, emphasize the importance of it. We worked with the BBC for many years, and the team convinced the chairman of BBC TV to sit on the platform when we were giving our presentation, so to speak. Gave credibility to the thing. Get somebody like that just for 3 or 4 minutes to emphasize the importance of getting this thing off and the importance to DN as a whole. Make it personal. It's very tough. The pressure is on these client people. They know damn well that a lot of them are not going to be there shortly. It's obvious. So the tension is going to be there, and we can't avoid it. It's stupid if we think it's not. So we've got to accept that tension and try and gently get them on board and make them understand why it's so important for this to happen to DN. Otherwise, DN vanishes, which is what the CEO could say should he introduce it. So try and think of these things. So I hope you've learned from it. For those who were McKinsey people, you will have an opportunity being clients next week.
As well as having the ability to get us information and access. I actually think they're pretty vital in the problem-solving process. And we often underestimate how effective they can actually be and how much we can actually learn from our clients. We're not all powerful kind of superhuman beings, and they have often much more to contribute to the process than we actually do ourselves.
There you go. Certainly when I joined the firm, the emphasis was very strongly on hot analysis. Whether they had management experience, whether they were human beings or not, didn't really matter. It was analysis that was the driving force, partly at least because clients did not have that capacity themselves. Over the years, we have gradually recognized that being a good analyst is not of itself sufficient to make you a good consultant, certainly in the type of work we do. We revised completely our recruiting profile, changing, not dramatically, but substantially away from the pure analyst to people who had leadership qualities, which we looked for and talked to them about, who appear to have the human qualities that would enable them to talk to men and women twice their age. So we've deliberately moved away from analysis.
In terms of what we look for, I can tell you that because I've been doing some interviewing and I've been helping with recruiting lately, and it is definitely leadership potential, but also the ability to be a team player and be someone that you would want to be spending your time with. The other thing that this place looks for is somebody who's gone out and really pursued something and grabbed it, and I think I probably filled that one with an Olympic medal that I got in '92 in sailing.
Punctual in meetings instead of client sites we are. Internal meetings.
Although McKinsey emphasises the importance of a link to the top, much of the training focuses on how to get the most from all levels of staff. A recurrent theme is the need for these high flyers to treat client team members with more respect. McKinsey associates are asked to share the best and the worst of their experiences.
We may ignore skill building. So at the end of the project, we've come up with a great McKinsey answer, but we've forgotten about the fact they then have to get it done, and we haven't built the skills for them to do that. In terms of roles, we often dominate. We take the best ones for ourselves and allocate the grunt work to them. These people are humans, they can't get everything done.
Be careful about appearing arrogant. One team introduced themselves and they gave every single degree that they possessed. I have a PhD in that, a master's in that, whatever it was. It was a litany of things, and it was awful. It sounded unbelievably arrogant, because the client people probably, some of them don't have a degree at all.
You don't realize that not everyone has the same work ethic you do. It's not that they don't want to do their jobs well, but they didn't sign on for 80 hours a week and traveling around the country. And they're not getting, financially rewarded or all these other things. They have other priorities in their lives. And just because they don't make the same choices that you do doesn't mean that they're not smart people or dedicated people or that they do a bad job.
Being efficient gives us the room to maneuver, the room to change. To be lean is to be liberated.
putting consultants into a firm like DN is often a tense affair. The politics of the shop floor comes as a shock to those used to more theoretical analysis.
Hi, Steve. Good morning. Did you hear the news? DN's on strike. No, it means you have to get to class now. Okay? Bye-bye.
The threat of strike is always real in a newspaper. It's always real.
And that has been the history of having strikes.
Yes.
Did you see that? I got a phone call this morning. Well, like 7:15. DN's on strike. So that's wonderful. I'm gonna sleep for 20 more minutes. At least.
Usually when a consulting firm is known to be coming into a company, let's say McKinsey, it is announced that they're coming in to do a study, there is considerable concern and alarm among the people in the company because they expect that probably one of the results will be people will lose their jobs, because very often that is what is needed.
Okay, good morning.
Harry Langstaff has gone to New York for a meeting, so the group is now led by Richard Gridley, a retired director of McKinsey's.
It's obviously all, and especially for you. We have a problem this morning. You will see from this broadsheet a leaked document has somehow found its way into the hands of one of the informal leaders among the pre-press people, and the result has been a strike. This is not an official strike, so the union is in a slightly difficult position also. You should also bear in mind that each day of the strike is going to cost DN somewhere in the region of 5 million Swedish krona. I want the group back at 8:45 with a set of recommendations as to how we're going to advise DN to solve this strike. Okay, so off you go, and we want quick solutions, please.
Hey, any good layout people on our team?
Bring in the scabs.
The pressure is increased to force the students to think on their feet, just as in the rail strike at DN. It exposes how differently they cope with such volatile situations with their own clients.
In the immediate aftermath of the strike, they found in their rooms messages from Swedish television asking for an interview because it was going to be on TV that night, from Business Week, who wanted to do a lead article on it, from the vice president of production, who was in effect saying, what on earth's going on, and I've got to meet the typographers in 45 minutes, and from the senior editor, who is representing the editor-in-chief, who's saying, get them back to work, whatever it takes.
It depends a little bit. Should we sort of play the hard or the soft game?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, this is sort of an illegal strike. The union can't endorse it. I think that's because there haven't been sort of official negotiations yet, and there might be some issues around that. I mean, I think it's possible that we could sort of
It's actually
clarify that.
And then, after 5 minutes, they received a fax from the director saying, I'm flying over from Oslo in a hurry to find out what's going on. I want to see you.
So we've got 2 meetings at 8:45. That's kind of difficult.
You know the paper that got leaked? We don't even know if it's true, do we? There's a complete lack of trust.
Okay.
And then based on a little bit of evidence was construed incorrectly.
So strike is based on rumors and distrust.
How do we get them back to work, and what can we learn?
We have to tell them that is an illegal strike. So, I mean, somehow they have to...
But it's not illegal,
carry
it's just
out.
not official.
Or not official.
Right.
No, I agree with this terminology. I think it is illegal.
Why?
I think we should use that terminology, because they have no legal right to strike.
Well, you could say that, and we have to decide if it's our role as McKinsey to play hardball with our clients' unions or not.
I think that the general tone of our message should be honest, but also optimistic. You know, if we can spin it like, you know, yes, we may have to reduce the number, but we're going to largely try and do that through attrition, sort of thing. I mean, be fully honest, but tend towards avoiding the word layoff.
We got a very simple strategy. Just boom, 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 boom. hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more. What you say? Hit the road, Jack.
That's not our communication strategy.
Often, I think, people bring in consultants to deliver bad news. That you bring in the firm of consultants because you reckon they'll tell everybody what you, for various reasons, it's easier or more expedient not to tell them yourself.
If you allow consultants to be blamed for a lot of things, that means that you actually put more responsibility on them that they should have. And you can't, as a manager, distance yourself from the consultants you brought in yourself.
If blame is still there once the project is over, then something is fundamentally wrong. But if blame is part of the process in making things happen and then turns into something good, then it's okay, I believe. Because I believe blame is always part of that. We were blamed. There were drawings in the paper where we were perceived as the people pushing the employees over the cliff. You remember that?
Yes.
But that was part of that process. Yeah. But it's always easier to blame the outsider.
That's why you bring them in.
It's always easier to blame.
The CEO and the management team can meet with the typographers and have a very open discussion about what they think is happening. And that way it's not just a speech given from some elevated platform, and it's not an informal newsletter which always gets thrown in the basket, but allows for more of a dialogue. And that's to start building trust. And then if that didn't work, we had a second approach, which would be just a little bit simpler. Some people, may feel uncomfortable talking in big groups, and others may not be able to read the newsletter. So we thought if there's a one-page way to pictorially get across the point of what's going to happen. You have a very big ship with just a tremendous number of people on it. Then you have this iceberg, which poses the complication. In here, you can put bullet points, like economic downturn, things like that. And then you have to solve the problem. As you see, there's been a retirement community set up here on the back. And the ship, because of new technology, is being able to be run by a lot fewer people. And then, as you see, if they can't seem to avoid this iceberg, there's dire consequences. And as you can see, people are dying and sinking to the bottom of the ocean.
The main objective there is to resolve any misunderstandings. But secondly, if that's not going to work, we also want to show that we can play hardball too. Now, we haven't yet taken any legal advice, but we certainly feel that there are grounds that the leaders of this strike could be fired if they continue their action.
If you play hardball at this stage, you give them a good reason to turn the illegal strike into a legal strike and into an official strike. Because if they have the feeling that there's nothing to lose, because the end will go down anyway, they might not have enough confidence to say, okay, let's go to work and let's turn the situation around. It might be better to really convince them that you can sort of save the end, but only if we continue working, if we do this on a collaborative basis.
Yeah, and I think, Ollie, we would like to have you leading our discussions with our people. you are you're spinning this in exactly the way that we would like to spin it. We're just management consultants, right? We come up with the ideas, but basically we are facilitating, coordinating, orchestrating, but we're not going to communicate anything.
Don't you play the game of the strike by if you're thinking about firing the leaders? Because a strike doesn't need illegal strike doesn't need any leader.
You're right in the sense that we don't want to make martyrs out of these people, right? We want them to look stupid. We don't want them to look like heroes, or maybe we want to make them look really smart by returning to work.
I think at the moment we just don't know what exactly we could do about a light strike. So that's exactly something we really have to figure out.
Tough crowd, so early in the morning.
Okay, thank you, Team A, for stimulating active discussion.
It was tough this morning.
Like guys.
Oh, it was a rough crowd, man.
And it was rough for one reason, and one word, hardball.
Yeah.
The answer McKinsey was looking for is what worked in the rail DN situation, a concerted strategy of communication with union leaders and the workforce. Knut, Julia and Steve's team had the McKinsey answer, but not everyone agreed.
Are you going to have any time to do any of the work while you're communicating?
Hopefully. We need something to communicate, right?
You say that as if communication isn't work, but we very much feel that communication is actually good time invested up front.
What I don't understand is, we just spent a whole week discussing this case, and no one mentioned this issue. Suddenly we become very, very touchy-feely and less analytical and hard-nosed. And I just wonder whether this is really the appropriate response. Given that we are in a pre-strike situation, we're not in a strike situation.
But that's the point, because a strike costs 6 million kroner a day.
Yeah. But look, I mean, you said we didn't do this last week. See what happened this Monday morning.
Imagine the time you're going to spend on that nonsense, right?
Simon, are you a little bitter from this morning? He's still smarting.
Have you been involved in any strikes?
Have you caused any?
Okay, let's move on.
Actually, in the process of convincing some people to leave, the union played a key role. They helped that happen.
The unions took on a lot of responsibility
Absolutely.
for this process, actually.
And it wouldn't have happened if they wouldn't.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity over those 2 weeks to learn very specific skills that can help you become a more effective consultant. More subtly, though, the things you learn, the more subtle but probably more important things are what it means to work at McKinsey, what the firm means when it says that it has a one-firm culture, and tries to instill in people that join the firm early on an important collection of values that the firm has established over time.
DN shed half its 1,400 workers through agreed severance pay. It has since transformed the whole operation to run on a more business-like footing. Its marketing strategy takes it into new media.
We probably would have been out of business by now. How much of that is thanks to McKinsey is hard to define, but they certainly played an important role. I think that maybe we should have cut with McKinsey earlier and started building management ourselves earlier on.
Yeah.
Becomes kind of a routine. They get kind of built into the organization in a way that they shouldn't.
I was at the time consultant. If I would have asked myself the question, if I would have been smart enough to ask myself the question, are we really bringing any value in relationship to what we're costing, we would probably have seen that we should pull out earlier than what we did. Because the marginal return on that additional investment goes down.
There are organizations that have become overly consultant dependent. That can be eroding of inner morale within the organization.
Everybody try it. Whisper. Whisper. Here's to Harry Langstaff, Harry Langstaff, Harry Langstaff. Here's to Harry Langstaff, who's with us tonight. He's happy, he's jolly, he's messed up by golly.
Here's to Harry Langstaff, who's with us tonight. He's happy, he's jolly, he's messed up by golly. Here's to Harry Langstaff, who's with us tonight.
Sing on!
Drink chug-a-lug-a, drink chug-a-lug-a, drink chug-a-lug-a, drink. Drink.
One of the things that happens with all of these people working together is they develop a sort of religion. It's as if they're Moonies. They believe in McKinsey and they believe in the McKinsey way of doing things. Now, to an outsider, that's slightly scary because we think that business is more varied and more complicated than that.
I think the firm is less about, specific things they could teach you, otherwise everyone could do that. And it's more about getting people to be able to work so effectively together and really push each other for such high levels of excellence. And I think that's what you do when you meet people like this, is you want to stay with the firm and you want to make it a better place and you want to do good things. And it's not like, if it was something they could teach us in 2 weeks, McKinsey would be like McDonald's.
Now, another way of putting what Kerry just said is that this is a 2-week brainwashing session. We're one firm and we do it this way and we think like this and we're so great because we help our clients in this and this and this way and add so much value.
I read an article where they called it, compared it to Jesuit priests. There's these people who are just such a strong sense of loyalty. And I don't know, I was very attracted to that. Maybe I am a little bit.
That's strong. From time to time, too strong, I think.
And if you talk too much like this, they send you back. It's a secret brainwashing camp. Knut will be leaving in a separate car on his way out of it. You'll notice.
A year later, Knut is selling Doggen's new header in the street.
Take care, Peter.
The last day, recruits exchange addresses and plan to meet again across the world. At McKinsey, the fun often has a serious purpose.
It's very important to decide when to stop using the consultants, because you very easily get addicted. You very easily get used to these well-trained, hard-working people running around. It's fun, it's stimulating, you get results fast, you can ask things to be done over the weekend and it gets done.
It's an insurance as well. It becomes sort of an insurance
quality
premium,
guarantee.
if you will. A quality guarantee. If you're slightly uncertain, let's keep them.
As the class of '98 heads back to change the world, no one knows who will be the 1 in 5 who stays and who will go on to become the power brokers in business and politics. But every McKinsey recruit will remain in the network.
I have my problems with McKinsey. I left under a cloud, cloudy for both of us. McKinsey is, in its own fashion, an intellectual hotbed that respects ideas, that doesn't have much time for BS, that gives you the great privilege of being exposed to large numbers of absolutely brilliant people. It was a great training ground. I had a PhD from Stanford, and so I got a PhD squared from McKinsey during my 7 years there. And I had strange, crazy, weird friends at McKinsey with whom I mostly work, many, if not most of whom I'm still in contact with. And so it was a beautiful time, and I'm glad I left.